Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Prickly Hedgehog, your host. Thanks for tuning in for another video. Now today I'm going to talk to you about some interesting news from third-party developers, which I think are worthy of mention simply because, one, I wasn't able to get this information out to you last week just for brevity's sake, and also I think they deserve their own slot based on the importance of that information. So today we're going to be talking about Flyingiron Simulations, also Razbam, and the various projects that he's working on, as well as True Grit Simulations, which many of you were excited to hear about, who are working on the Typhoon. So let's begin with Flyingiron Simulations, who have had a little bit of a challenge in terms of getting some things ready for the Corsair. They, of course, are working on a variety of different projects for other platforms, and even hinted here that they will be producing some modules for to import into Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So that's interesting. But they are working on the Corsair 7E, excuse me, and they of course have run into a few problems that looks likely it's going to be a delay. There was hope it was going to be released in 2020, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Now what they have said here is that they've spent a considerable amount of time on learning the ins and outs of DCS world and its complex code structures, learning how systems work together and the flow of information within the sim. Admittedly, this has been a daunting but necessary task, and we're pleased to say that we are making excellent headway and now are beginning the real work of developing the aircraft flight model and systems. So let's talk about some of the things that they're working on here. They will be releasing more snazzy shots as some of their other projects come to conclusion, which will be nice to see. But the real work is not actually on the eye candy. It really is, as mentioned, the flight model. Now, one of the most important phases of development is the creation, they say, of the simple flight model, which is used by the AI aircraft. And some of you have noticed, and DCS and Eagle Dynamics have pointed this out, that the AI aircraft use a simplified flight model, and I know that they're working to improve that. Sometimes you'll see weird and quirky behaviors as a result of the flight model and the way in which the AI are programmed to function. That is a work in progress. Nevertheless, Flyingiron Simulations is using this basically as a starting point for the essential AI flight, but also it provides them with a data foundation for the more advanced flight model that the full fidelity aircraft use that you and I will fly in the game. Now, the work here has progressed rapidly, and the SFM tuning, or simple flight model tuning, is nearing completion, with weapons testing and AI behavior to be examined next. So, where is it for the advanced flight model development? Well, creating the flight model for the A7 is undoubtedly one of the most complex and difficult aspects of creating the simulation, like I said before. And this is receiving the appropriate time and care within development. Our EFM is being built in several phases, starting from simple and being refined and updated repeatedly to achieve the depth and realism of simulation we are aiming for. Currently, we are working to complete phase 1, which is the simplified flight model, that incorporates the key equations of motion and fundamental flight physics simulations accurately. We are experimenting with multiple approaches of flight simulation. However, it is likely we will use a hybridized combination of blade element theory, CFD analysis and data, and tables to create our flight model. Ultimately, we believe in this case the end is more important than the means, and our number one priority here is to, and always will be, to create an A7 that flies as true to life as is possible. And we will use any combination of techniques to achieve this. So that gives you an idea of, the complex equations and stuff that they are working through to really create a working model. So it's not just the aesthetics of the aircraft which are important, but really the critical component is the flight model, because if it runs on rails, then you lose the immersive nature, even if the aircraft is pretty to look at. So and we'll talk here a little bit more about what's under the hood, as they say, because it's not just these physics components, but also other systems within the aircraft as well. So not only are you looking at what's on the exterior, but also what you see and control as the pilot, but also everything that's underneath the hood and powers and controls these systems. So to give an example, for they say here, each facet of the electrical system is simulated and modeled, from your generator, RPM electrical output calculations, down to the most minute details such as the resistance and impedance of wires within a circuit. That's incredible. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't even thought that you would need to do such a thing, but I suppose that is necessary as the aircraft flies. These things are going to fluctuate. So it's really, really interesting. So as these systems provide the foundation for more complex weapon, navigation, and targeting systems, we will be developing these systems first before moving on to the aforementioned advanced systems. Now, speaking of eye candy, photogrammetry and new art technology. Whilst our art team hasn't been actively working on the Corsair, we have been working on integrating several new workflow techniques for the A7, with early tests providing some very exciting results. Specifically, Alex has been experimenting with photogrammetry and 3D scanning techniques which will yield stunning, accurate results in a short amount of time. Thankfully, we've had several people assisting us here by providing pictures, videos, and reference material for us to work with. So, they say here, if you're a person that might be able to assist in this department by providing a reference material, please feel free to contact us directly via our website. So if you have an A7 sitting at home, and you'd like to provide Flyingiron Simulations with some 3D modeling opportunities for them to scan in, then reach out to them. So yeah, a lot of exciting news there. Really interesting website. I didn't realize they were working on quite so many different aircraft in other platforms as well, and it's very, very interesting that they are planning to insert some modules into Microsoft Flight Simulator, which, of course, probably doesn't bode all that well for Eagle Dynamics, because that is effectively a competing platform, which in its own right, without the combat aircraft, isn't necessarily a direct competitor. It is in the flight simulator genre, but they have their own niche in terms of the flight combat stuff. Again, really interesting. A competition, of course, is not a bad thing. It's not going to detract from DCS World, but it does mean that they have to be on their toes, and they are, as I mentioned in my last update, aware of that and are working towards that, so it's a good thing. Again, it's not a criticism of Eagle Dynamics at all by any stretch. I think they produce a fantastic product. So, moving on, let's talk about True Grit Simulations, which we've already mentioned. Now, they announced, I believe it's today, that they have an Iris-T missile that they're going to be using as their predominant heat-seeking missile for their Typhoon. And a lot of people, of course, will be happy with that. Now, the Iris-T development began back in '98. According to Air Force Technology here, the missile was developed by a six-nation consortium comprising European countries such as Germany, Greece, Norway, Italy, Spain, and Sweden. Dial BGT Defense is a prime contractor for the program, and other major contributing companies involved are MBDA, Hellenic Aerospace, Nemo, Raufoss, International de Composites, and Sub-Bofors Dynamics. So it's a multi-consortium missile. A little bit of imagery here from True Grit, who are really, this is going to be one of the more interesting aircraft in the game, and certainly one of a little bit more controversy, simply because of how advanced it is compared to most of the other aircraft in the game, and whether or not that's not going to be a game changer for a lot of the multiplayer fans out there. Nevertheless, True Grit, if they produce this product as well as it looks, this is going to be one of the most anticipated aircraft in the game, I think, with respect to everybody else. The last video that I produced on this, actually, this aircraft is sitting at about 24,000 views, which is pretty good for me, I must say, because most of my videos average, 1 to 2,000, anything over that, and I'm pretty happy. So I'm very curious about your thoughts on this. This aircraft is looking really, really nice, and I have to give a double thumbs up to True Grit for the work that they are doing on it. But as we know, of course, the eye candy is one thing. All the other systems that have to be developed to make this aircraft function appropriately in the game. If the A7 Corsair has, development about the impedance of wiring in the aircraft, what the heck are True Grit going to be working on with the sophisticated avionics of a Generation 4 aircraft? It gives you, some idea of just how much work needs to go into this. So, remember that the Iris-T missile actually is designed to replace the AIM-7. for the Typhoon, which of course the M7 is the NATO standard for most NATO aircraft. So interesting to see how that's going to function and operate in the game, because it's a completely new missile that isn't already modeled. So again, they've got their work cut out there. Okay, lastly, Razbam. Now, most of you are familiar with Razbam, who's produced some fantastic aircraft over the years, including the Harrier, of course, the Mirage, and the Mig-23 Farmer. So what is he working on right now? Well, we've got the F-15 Strike Eagle project, of course. We've got the Flogger. There's been a little bit of, not hype, but some more images coming out about the Flogger. Very early stages, the Super Tucano project, which will be one of the few propeller aircraft in the game, at least in terms of fixed wing. We don't have a whole lot of those. So the Christian Eagle, for example, but at least in the modern era, everything else is Warbird stuff. So I think that's going to be an interesting addition to the game. Really looking forward to it. Now, Razbam is unashamed about the projects, and he has frequently said that anything he puts up on the website should not be taken as an indicator that something is impending to be released, but rather it'll be ready when it's ready. So don't get overly excited about anything you see. A lot of work going on. So not only is the team working on these aircraft, but of course there's still a considerable amount of work being done on the South Atlantic Terrain project, which basically is the Falklands and Falklands era. We're talking early 80s here. Aircraft, the ships, and objects, and a really really comprehensive, complex set of things going on there. So, oh boy, a lot of people have said, are you working on too many things? I don't know what he does in his spare time, but Razbam has, they have their work cut out for them. But anything that does come to fruition is going to be eagerly anticipated, of course. And not only eagerly anticipated, I think well received too, because the quality of the work from a small studio like this is pretty outstanding. Well, let me know your thoughts. I think we've come to the end of that. I just wanted to give you, like I said, a brief update of the aircraft that are being worked on in the background that are not Eagle Dynamics own works, but also are still high quality and well worth looking into. And I will keep you updated as much as I can for future developments. Certainly Razbam is the quietest among those guys, and also has probably the most work because of the number of projects and also the map as well. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be a virtual pilot. I think this fall is going to be busy because most of us are going to be tinkering with Microsoft 2020. Don't forget to get your pre-order there if you can afford it. We've got, as I said last week, the Ugra Media Syrian map, which we are going to get at the end of the summer, which is not far away, let's be real. So it's going to be a busy time and an exciting time. I can't wait to get into that Syrian map. I also can't wait to get into some of these other aircraft that are, tantalizingly close. And and yet we've got so much too. We've got, the F-18, the F-16. We've still got the F-14, which is well and truly by far my favorite aircraft. The F-18 of course, is fantastic. The F-16 is fantastic. Helicopters, the Hind. Did you hear Wags the other day? Did you hear Wags say, "Hey, look, there's a Hind"? Oh, and maybe, did you hear him say this? He also hinted at an Apache, which I know a lot of you have talked about. Where does one go? What does one do? All this stuff in development and soon to be released. Fingers crossed. All right, that's enough waffle. Thanks for tuning in once again to another video. Stay safe out there. Take care. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's so critical. We're up to just over 2,000 subscribers right now. It's helping the channel grow. Let's push it to 2,500. Let's keep the magic rolling on. I'll bring you more updates when I can. Stay safe out there, everybody. Keep on flying. We'll see you around. Cheers, guys.